I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
I will not enable your silly old fables. Rely on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate, trying to give you a breakthrough. Cause it one way, Jesus is God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics. So let me see y'all, Jesus is God. You can try to change my mind if you think that's a rhyme. Don't manifest on me, buddy, just be still and be calm. Cause today I'm gonna teach you about the real of Islam. Just keep it your and I'll make you a kafir. Hus gon' be kabir, habibi should be shakir. Who's the one true God? Yours cannot compare. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, why I have no fear. Hey, step up and see if all the energy remains. Spend your days in the mental gym and never see no gains. I'm yet to see the evidence to represent your claims. Now I'm starting to think everything you ever said is strange. The scriptures that I'm reading don't need anyone to change. Anything they say so you don't get to run away. Just know that I'ma hold you to whatever you might say. And God is great, I'm ready for you any time of day. I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll bake you. Bro, I don't hate, trying to give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus God. Ay, apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay, apologetics, God bless. Be not afraid, I'm a man of respect. I love the Lord in his hand I project. That's why your ignorance has no effect. And why you ain't sinking your fangs in my neck. You vipers have wisdom but you lack the innocence. Islam ain't blissful when you have to live in it. Y'all go against the verse if you ain't feeling it. Make up excuses and add something into it. We not the same, his word is the proof. The fact that you lacking, I'm packing the boot. You panic attacking, I'm slapping with truth. And that's why you have to react like you knew. But we don't have children to marry for one. And we don't have orders to hurt anyone. I know your demons are hurt cause we won. But you can be free if you turn to God's son. Not a neighbor, you silly old fables. You lie on my God, and I'm flipping some tables. Bible, make no difference, I'll bake you. Bro, I don't hate, trying to give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus is God. Hey, apologetics, one way, hey, apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, hey, apologetics, God bless.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jake Brancatella. And today, as you can see, as usual, we have, or as usual for late, we have a live call-in session where I've put everyone is welcome. Now, we already have a couple people waiting in the back. One of them, if you guys are familiar with Christian apologetics or Muslim and Christian discussions, debates, what have you, is a man by the name of Claus. Now, as far as I know, he has seen my recent comments about what I've said regarding certain biblical texts like Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28 and 29, where I've made the claim that in this passage, a woman who is raped is required to marry her rapist. So he's here to discuss that and another passage on 1 Samuel chapter 15:3 regarding from the apparent text of what I've claimed, the ordering of killing babies or infants. So he was the first one here. We had discussed him actually coming on here. And so I'm going to bring him up. He may take the entire show. I don't know. We're going to see how this goes. We agreed beforehand that there is to be no sort of blasphemous statements, no outright disrespect and any of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I already talked to about that with him. So I'm not anticipating that will happen. But if it does, then you know, my session with Chris would end after that because I'm not going to tolerate that kind of stuff on my channel. However, I see that there's already a couple other people waiting in the back channel. I'm just telling you ahead of time, I'm not doing this to disrespect you or anything like that. but he's going to be, he was the first one here anyway, but he's going to be the first one I speak to. And it may take the majority of the portion of the show. So we'll see how it goes. So if you're waiting in the back channel, don't anticipate that you're going to come up anytime soon. That's my point. I don't want people to think that this is intentional or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to bring Chris up and we will start the discussion. Of course, I gave an introduction, not to poison the well, but just to introduce the conversation. And I'll allow him, if he'd like to, sort of introduce what his perspective is on the relevant first passage that we're going to look at, which is Deuteronomy 22. He can give a summary of that if he'd like, and then we can go right into it, or we can go right into the text. It's really up to him. So I'm going to bring him up now. Hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jake. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So I introduced it, sort of what we're going to be talking about. Do you have any preliminary comments?
No, the only thing that I would say is that I'm definitely not going to blaspheme. I think that Christians and Muslims in 2026 should be able to respectfully discuss certain topics on each other's panel. And as I said before, I respected that you came on Christian platforms and was respectful there. So we should be able to do the same on yours.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Sometimes I have a problem with my connection, my Wi-Fi lately. So if you can't hear me or there's some type of problem, you can let me know. Also, people in the chat can let me know as well, because I'll be looking at that from time to time. But people in the chat, let's keep it respectful. You guys can talk to each other if you want. I'd rather you'd kind of listen and pay attention to what both people have to say, but keep it respectful in the chat. All right, so I don't know if you want to say anything about if you watched any of my videos or you had any comments, but I think we kind of agreed that the first text we would look at is Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 and 29. I can bring that up on the screen if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is the passage I'm sharing on the screen. Are you able to see that, Chris?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. So this is Deuteronomy 22. I'm happy to read from whatever translation you like. Do you have a specific translation you want to read from?
Well, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really matter the translation. My contention here would be that the word in Deuteronomy 22:28 doesn't mean to rape, but the word in Deuteronomy 22:25 would mean to rape. And that would be the difference.
Okay. Because some people were on, I mean, when you go on BibleHub.com, this is a resource that I frequently use because it's got commentary and you can look up the Hebrew and the Greek and stuff like that. So I find it pretty useful. And when you go on, the first translation that they give is NIV, which literally uses the word rape, which many Christians have objected to. And obviously you object to that translation. That's why I just wanted to say that from the outset. So I'll read NIV. I'll read how the NIV reads, and then I'll go to maybe King James version. It says, if a man if a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He cannot never divorce her as long as he lives. So that's how it reads, pretty straightforward. I'll go to another translation now. Let's go to King James version, because that's, one of the most popular, I would say. It says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold of her, so that's the difference. That portion there is translated by the NIV as rape, and here they say, and lay hold of her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. So is this translation more representative of how you view the passage, or do you think it's not good either?
Well, the way that I would view the passage would be to use the word seize. The word in Hebrew, the word
Want
seize
me to
would,
pull that up for you?
yeah, for sure. If you actually went to, I believe, if the RSV or the ESV, both of those translations have and seizes her and lies with her.
Okay, I'm going to bring up the word by word text here.
Sure.
So this is Deuteronomy 22, 28. This is the Hebrew.
Yep.
It says, if a man finds a young woman who is a virgin, who is not betrothed, and here it says what you said, and he seizes her, okay, and lies with her, and they are found out. Okay, so this is the word that's up for dispute. Okay, it says, and he seizes her here in the Hebrew. I'm going to click on it. I mean, I'm not trying to hide anything. So let's see. We can go to Strong's Hebrew concordance if you want. I don't know where it defines the word. So it's, and I'm no expert at all in Hebrew, so I'm just going to say that from the beginning. But I believe it's pronounced tapas, and it says here it's a verb: catch, handle, lay, take hold on, over, stop, X surely. I don't even know what that would mean. Surprise, take, NASB, seized, captured, caught, seize, handle, take, took. And then here it says to manipulate, i.e. seize, chiefly to capture, wield, specifically to overlay.
You see where it says number one, to manipulate, to seize.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that would be the understanding that I would imply into the verse into 22, 28. I'll give you an understanding of what I mean. So like, say back in the day, before we were religious, there was bars, there's clubs, whatever. You'd go in and you'd like start spitting some game to the females to see if you could pick one up, of course, right? That to me is the manipulation that it's speaking about. He's manipulating her into sleeping with him type thing with his words. And the reason why I would use that is I believe that the Targum of Jonathan would also agree with my interpretation of this. And also it would just make sense because in Deuteronomy 22, we start above. We can see the different ways that it's giving it. In verse 25, it specifically says if a man forces himself and she calls out. Now, in this verse, in 28, there's no calling out either. So it's another indication that it's not a physical type of harm to the woman.
Okay. Do you believe that I should just ask this? Because even though you're interpreting it the way that you do, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't have any problem with the other interpretation. But if you were convinced that this passage actually meant rape, and that the Bible was saying that a rape victim, in at least one situation, some situations, must be forced to marry the rapist, would you find that as problematic?
There would definitely be problems with it. I'm not going to lie, of course, right? But even under the Mishnah, which it would be the law of the Jews, right? Under the Mishnah, if there's two laws to one punishment, then you would get the most severe one.
Mm-hmm.
So in this situation, if there was two punishments for one crime, which there would be, because 3 verses earlier, it says that the man must die. And then this one, it says that he must pay 50 shekels. If it's the same crime, then there's two different actions that they could use, right? 2 different consequences. And in the Mishnah, it's always the most extreme. So there would never, ever be the 50 shekels being paid in that situation. But again, it would still be problematic if this word, in fact, did mean rape and that, to go on with it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, some people might just accept it and think that they don't have a problem with it. And I know that there are people who believe that. So that's why I was asking. But okay, let me because you're mentioning the broader context here of Deuteronomy 22. So let me go back to that. And
we just read 25 and see what it says there.
Yeah. So Here, you wanted to start at 25. So it says, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. So do you want to comment on that, or?
Yeah, so this is basically saying that if a guy takes a woman and he forces her and they're found and she's crying out, of course, because this is showing that she's being forced because she's not a willing person within the relation that's happening, of course, right? Yeah. Then the man dies. There is no sin placed upon the woman, right?
Mm-hmm. And so you would say that this section here, 25 to 27, is talking about rape, right?
Yes, sir, it is. Yep. And now it doesn't make much sense for it to describe a rapist being unalive. Well, we're on YouTube now. It doesn't make sense that they would say that the rapist would be killed, of course, right? And then the very next verse say, oh, but no, he can also pay 50 shekels. That, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so another part of this, I think it might be relevant here. 1 second here. Okay, so verse 23, right? It says, if a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then they shall bring them both out onto the gate of that city, and he shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put away evil from among you. Now, do you think this was a case of these verses here, 23 and 24? Is this a case of consensual sex or rape?
This would be a sign of consensual sex. And the reason why the woman would be at fault here is because that she is betrothed to another man. So once that betrothal is in there, she's now cheating on her husband at that point. And of course, the punishment that we find in Exodus for this, because what Deuteronomy is truly is the second law. That's what the two words put together mean. So basically what Moses is doing is he's reiterating the law that he's already given in Exodus. That's all.
Yeah. Did you cut out there, Chris? Or are you still there?
Oh, yeah. I just muted for you. That's all.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is a case of consensual sex. And so is 28 and verses 28 and 29. So what would you say is the main, I'm not trying to be repetitive, but I just want to be clear about this. What would you say is the main difference between 23 and 24 versus 28 and 29? Because they're both consensual sex, but in the first one, both the man and the woman are told that they should be put to death, and in 28 and 29 they're not. So what's the difference?
The difference that I see in those two verses is that in 23 to 24, I believe the woman is betrothed to be married. The one in 28 to 29 is not betrothed to be married. So she's not already committed to be married, right? So in 28 and 29 is actually a punishment for the male. In 28 and 29, if you're going to have consensual sexual relations with a woman, then you have to marry that woman, because in ancient times, women that had already slept with a man were no good to be married after that, and she wouldn't find a husband. So it was upon the man that slept with her that he had to marry her. He had to pay the 50 shekels, as long as the father allowed it. I think the father still can deny it.
Okay, so I agree with you that one of the major differences between 23 and 24 versus 28 and 29 is that in the first case, the woman is betrothed to a man. Okay, so she's due to get married to another man, and because of that, it's seen as an adulterous sexual affair, even if it was consensual, and therefore both of them are to be put to death. Now,
Yep.
my claim is that it's exactly the same thing that you just said. That is the difference between 23 and 24 to 28 and 29, that one is betrothed and one isn't. And that's my claim between verses 25 to 27, verse 28 and 29. I'm claiming that the difference is not that 25 to 27 is rape and 28 and 29 are not. No, verses 25 to 27 are rape, and so are 28 and 29. However, the key differences, is that in verses 25 to 27, the woman is betrothed to another man, and in virtue of that, both of them are to be put to death. Let me just read it here again. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie to her, then the man is the one that's put to death. Why? Because he raped her. It wasn't consensual. Okay. And she's betrothed to another man. Whereas 28 and 29, the woman is not betrothed. And it's still, this is my claim now, it's still a case of rape. But the main difference between the two is not that one is rape and the other one is not. They're both rape, but one is about a woman who is betrothed and the other one is not. So what would you say to that?
I would say that you might be able to have an argument if the Hebrew word in 25 and the Hebrew word in 28 were the same word. Would you agree?
Well, if they were exactly the same word, then yeah, there definitely couldn't be any difference.
But why would they use two different Hebrew words if they were explaining the same thing?
Okay, so let's go actually to the look at what the word is there, right? Let me pull it up.
Yeah, because you might, if you can, on one tab, go ahead and pull up the Hebrew interlinear for Deuteronomy 22:28, and also the Hebrew interlinear for Deuteronomy 22, verse 25.
Okay, so I'm going to go to verse 25 just so people can see what the word is, right? It says here, but if in the countryside finds a man, a young woman who's betrothed, and forces her, the man, okay, so that's the word, right? Forces. And it's clearly not the same word. So let me click on it. Okay, it's a different Hebrew concordance. I'm going to click on that word there. And here it says, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just reading it. Shazak, to be strong, to strengthen, to harden, to prevail, to take hold of. And then if you go down here to the definition, to fasten upon, to hence to seize, be strong, courageous, causatively strengthen, cure, help, repair, fortify, obstinate, to bind, restrain, conquer, and Strong's exhaustive concordance.
No, I want to pause here. You notice the definitions you just read. You didn't read a manipulation type of definition for this word, correct?
It does not say the word manipulate, no.
But it did in the last definition for the Hebrew word for Deuteronomy 22:28, correct?
Yeah, that was one of the definitions listed.
I believe that's the reason why both words were used, 1 in 25 and 128, to show the difference between the seizing as you make, because a lot of people use the word seize for 25 and 28. But it's the kind of seizing that is being spoken about in 25 and 28 that needs to be addressed. And I believe it's a manipulation type of seizing being done in 28, not 25.
So you would say 25 is a physical seizing?
Yeah, that would be, and that would equal to the force as equal to rape.
Okay, and 28 is a
more of a manipulation.
A seizing manipulation of words or a particular scenario, but not
like you seize your wife's heart type thing.
Okay. So let's go back here. 1 second here. I mean, there's nothing really else relevant here. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of repeating more of the same words pretty much. Okay, let me go back here to 20.
But before you go back there, can you see my point?
I see what you're saying. I mean, I don't think that it's necessary for the same word to be used because, I mean, it's a common feature of language that you can have synonyms in a text, and you can have, even within close passages in proximity to each other, you could have the same concept or a similar concept and meaning being portrayed without it being the exact same word. I don't think there's any requirement for it to be the exact same word. So I don't.
No, I mean, I just meant my explanation for verses 25 and 28. Do you believe that that's a plausible explanation for the evidence that we've seen so far today?
I really don't, because I haven't. I actually want to address or go over what I'm most interested in is what you said earlier about some interpretations of this text that you think support your position. Because as far as I'm aware, I don't see any early Christian, whether you want to call them church fathers or writers, actually interpreting the passage this way. So that's the problem that I have, is that I don't see any really traditional or classical interpretations interpreting the text this way. That's kind of my problem with it, is that why would everybody else be interpreting the text so wrong all this time? But you seem to think that you have passages from people who say the opposite. So that's what I'm really interested in.
No, yeah, and if we look into the early church fathers, as you've mentioned, I think that maybe, like, you've probably looked into it and searched into it, and you would know yourself that there's not a lot of early church fathers that actually address or even speak upon this verse to give any type of understanding to it. Of course, they may brush by it from time to time. But again, I believe you used, what was it, Tertullian? In the video that you made, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can pull that up.
Because simply, I would just say the same thing. I just disagree with Tertullian in this aspect. That's all.
Okay, let me just pull it up because a lot of people probably haven't seen the video. Okay, so this is from Tertullian. This is from a Christian website. This is not like Muslim propaganda. This is newadvent.org. And this is from Tertullian against Marcion, book 4. Now I'm just going to scroll down here because it's a bit down. I think it's chapter 32 or 34. 1 second here. But for people who don't know, Tertullian is an early church writer. Late second century, early 3rd century. And let me just show this. Where is it? 34, I think it is. Yeah. Okay. So this is chapter 34. Okay. Explaining Moses allowing divorce, Christ prohibiting it. Anyway, this is not part of the original text, but I'm just saying there's the heading if anybody wants to find it later on. And then if you scroll down, right where you see like Matthew 5:32, sorry, it says, for in the Gospel of Matthew, let me just highlight it for people. Okay, here we go. For in the Gospel of Matthew, he says, Whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. So he's reporting the law set forward by Christ as it appears in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 32, regarding divorce, that you can only divorce under the condition that somebody committed adultery. He also is deemed equally guilty of adultery who marries a woman put away by her husband. The Creator, however, except on account of adultery, does not put asunder what he himself joined together. The same Moses, in another passage, enacting that he who had married after violence to a damsel should thenceforth not have it in his power to put away his wife. And that's referencing here Deuteronomy 22, 28, 29, which we've been reading, the main text in question. Now, if a compulsory marriage contracted after violence shall be permitted, how much rather shall a voluntary one the result of agreement? Now, as I explained in the video, my interpretation of the passage is pretty clear. What Tertullian is saying is that in a case of a normal marriage, which is one that is voluntary and one that is the result of agreement, divorce is really shunned against. Like he's really warning against divorce. And then he's using Deuteronomy 22, verses 28, 29, the verses in question that I'm saying is about rape and you're saying is consensual sex. He's saying, well, how much more by greater reason God in the Old Testament allowed that a compulsory marriage, one that is not voluntary, that there wasn't consent to essentially, and that was the result of violence, and that even that one should be permanent. Well, then how much more one that is voluntary and the result of agreement should be permanent and you should not get divorced? That's how he's explaining and connecting these passages. That's the way that I understand what Tertullian is saying. Do you agree with my interpretation of what Tertullian is saying there, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. I agree with your interpretation of Tertullian in this instance. I would just disagree with him.
Okay, so you would just disagree with him, but would you, I mean, how harsh would you be in your disagreement? Do you think that this, I mean, because that's why I asked you in the beginning, like, for example, Tertullian, and a Christian could take this position, right? That's why I asked you, if it were the case that you became convinced that this is what the text actually meant, what I'm saying and what Tertullian is saying, how would you feel about that? Would you be okay with it? And you said no. Like, that's the reason why I asked, is because Tertullian is interpreting the passage in the same way that I am, and he's fine with it. In fact, he's using it as a part of a theological argument or point that he's trying to make regarding divorce. So would you say that Tertullian's interpretation is evil, that it's really immoral and wrong in that way? Or you would just say
I just believe that it's wrong. In the same instance, I don't believe that there's Islamic scholars that you would believe their interpretations on certain things, and there may even be interpretations that you may even deem to be evil, of course, right? Or some people may deem to be evil that you don't.
Right.
But you would have no problem if you disagreed with them, just saying I simply disagree with them, based on what you've provided. And I've heard you say that before. So based on what I've provided, this is why I would disagree with Tertullian. That's all.
Okay. And then are you aware of, well, actually, I wanted to ask you, I know it's kind of a sidebar. If you don't want to answer the question, that's fine. But are you a Calvinist?
Nope. 100% not.
Okay. Were you ever a Calvinist before? I'm just curious.
I do believe that I would have been identified as a Calvinist. Now, I wouldn't have been identified as a 5-point Calvinist roughly about 10 years ago or so, maybe about 7 years ago. But it would have been more of a 4-point Calvinist.
You cut out on my end. You said, I couldn't hear what you said. You said you would have identified 10 years ago as a 5-point, or you would not have.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, you could say that I would have been like a 4-point Calvinist.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it cut out on my end. I don't know if it was my connection or yours. Okay. Anyway, it's not all that relevant, but I was just kind of curious about that. Are you aware of the passage from St. Augustine on this issue?
Nope.
Okay. I just wanted to, I want to show you that to get your thoughts on it. And I'm going to show this. This is in his commentary on the text. And the Latin is here, and I'll happy to share the link with anybody that wants it. Unfortunately, the English translation is not right here on the website, but this is a Christian website with the text in Latin. Now, I've posted it here. 1 second, let me show. Let me bring it up 1 second. Because I just put it on a quick Google Translate here. 1 second.
No problem. That Google Translate's usually pretty accurate too. We use it with the Arabic as well a lot of times.
Okay, so here it is. This is the text. And if the Latin experts want to say that I'm wrong or whatever, people can come out and do it. But I've checked with a couple of people who I respect, and they said this is what it is. So this is the translation of this text. Again, I'm happy to provide links. It says, and this is Augustine commenting on Deuteronomy 22, verses 28 and 29. He says, but if a man find a virgin who is not betrothed, and having violated her, lie with her, and be found, the man who lay with her shall give to the girl's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife. Because he has humiliated her, he has not been able to put her away forever. It is rightly asked whether this is a punishment that he cannot put her away forever, whom he has violated inordinately and unlawfully. For if we were to understand on this account that she cannot, that is, should not be put away forever because she has become a wife, that which Moses permitted to give a bill of divorce and to put her away. But in those who commit unlawful adultery, he should not permit it, lest it should seem that he did it for the sake of mockery, and that he rather pretended to have married her than to have married her truly and with pleasure. This was also commanded of her whose husband was slandered for not having found her virginity. And he goes on and on. But the text seems pretty clear to me in how he's describing it, that it's talking about her being humiliated, violated by the man, and that this is not a matter of consensual sex. And I've gone to other people who I respect and know a lot more than me about Latin, and they agree that this is exactly what Augustine is saying. So this is another, from my perspective, an early, probably early 5th century church father who's really well respected amongst the different sects of Christianity, who's interpreting this passage in the same way. Now, I suppose you would just say, well, Jake, it's the same thing with Tertullian. That's what Augustine says, and I disagree with him, and you think he's wrong.
Well, no, just 1 second. I wouldn't say that, because I granted your interpretation of Tertullian, but I'm not going to grant your interpretation here. Now, I'm not going to disagree with the Latin to the English. I'm going to agree that Google can, it usually is correct. But if you notice, the difference between Tertullian and Athanasian is the words force and violated. Now, down near the bottom, you've seen something else. Can you scroll? I would actually have to be there, but I believe that this violated.
I'm going down. Which part is it here?
Where it says that it talks about some type of sexual intercourse with a man down near the bottom of the thing.
Here,
unsolicited sexual intercourse or something like that.
Okay, but in those, if they're talking about this, but in those who commit unlawful adultery, he would not permit it, lest it should seem that he did it for the sake of mockery, and that he rather pretended to have married her than to have married her truly and with pleasure. This was also commanded of her whose husband was slandered for not having found her virginity. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah, so here it's almost talking about like a sexual type of violation. And not it to me, I believe that this violation can be that he slept with this girl without marrying her. That was the violation that he provided on her. I believe that there's a open range that we could use when it comes to that word that he's using to understand what he means by it. Now, it is different than what Tertullian said, of course, right? He didn't say to force upon this one, right?
Tertullian is definitely more explicit, but Augustine here uses the words violated her, and he also uses humiliated her. And
But
then,
technically, if you think about it, a woman who has sexual relations with a man who isn't her husband is humiliated by the community, correct?
wait, sorry, say that again.
A woman who sleeps with a man that's not her husband, neither one of them are betrothed to one another, they just sleep with one another, and people end up finding out, that woman would be humiliated by the community, of course, right? Especially way back then.
Yeah, but the way that it's phrased when it says, for example, violated her and humiliated her, it's as if he's the one that's in the wrong, that he's the one that's doing the act by which he's violating and humiliating her. It doesn't say that.
Technically he is, because he should have asked for her hand in marriage. He should have wrote the contract up. He should have paid for like it should have been done the proper way. He is in fault for doing it this way. And this is why he's got to pay the bride fee for that afterwards, and that he must marry her because he has violated her and humiliated her to the community.
Yeah, so here, and then it also says violated inordinately and unlawfully. So you're not making the definitive claim, but you're just saying that you think Augustine could be referring to some other type of violation that's not rape.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's not the way that I understand the text. It's I've spoken to other people about it, and Christians. I'm not speaking about Muslims who don't understand it that way. But I will grant definitely that Tertullian's text is much more explicit and clear about what he's saying. Because he's actually making an argument and he's going into more details. So it's definitely more explicit. But anyway, it doesn't really matter, because even if it were the case that you were convinced or somebody else were convinced that Augustine was interpreting the text the same way, you would say that you think he's wrong in the same way that Tertullian is. But anyway, that's from my point of view. But on the flip side, do you have any evidence or any scholars or any early sources that you would like to present to show your interpretation?
No, actually, I've been pretty busy today, so I wasn't able to pull up the Jewish sources that I needed. Like I said, I'm going to eventually end up making a video response to you with all these sources up on the screen and everything. But I didn't really have much time. Well, I do have a little bit of time today, but beforehand, I didn't have much time to get everything ready. So, but I just go based on the context and based on the word itself and the word in 25, using all that together and showing that it wouldn't make much sense to say somebody who rapes somebody dies, and then to say somebody who rapes somebody has to pay the person. That's all.
But Chris, why wouldn't you say that that's a possible interpretation that makes sense if in the case of, let's just go back to the text, because I just don't want to misrepresent here. Let's just go back to Deuteronomy 22. Okay, so what I'm having trouble understanding from your point of view is in verses 23 and 24, okay, this is about consensual sex, right? It's not about rape.
Yeah, it's consensual sex and it's adultery.
Right. Okay. So it's about consensual sex and adultery. Why? Because the woman is betrothed to the husband. Now, verses 28 and 29, you're also saying is about consensual sex in which the woman is not betrothed. So don't you think that that is, and we went over it before, you seem to agree, at least in part, that that is a key difference between the same two texts. So why couldn't I or somebody else like Tertullian or whoever else answer your question the same way that you would? You're saying that 23 and 24 are different in one sense because it's about someone that was betrothed to a husband, and 28 and 29 are not, even though they're both consensual. So why couldn't I, in the flip side, say that 25 to 27 are about rape, and so are 28 and 29, but one is an instance of betrothal and one is not? Are you still with me, or I don't know if I lost you?
No, yeah, my bad. I was just muted. So you would have to follow the penalty of rape. And under that situation, if you wanted to interpret it that way under the Mishnah, as I said, the Jewish law, if there was two punishments for one crime, they would always use the most severe punishment out of the two. So out of that situation, the person would always die because it is rape, right? Now, in the situation that I'm speaking of, in one it's adultery, and in the other it's fornication. There's a difference between them, correct?
Sorry, go ahead.
So in the first, in 23 to 24, this is about adultery. You would agree, correct?
Yeah,
because he's betrothed.
The woman is betrothed.
And in 28 to 29, she's not betrothed. So it's fornication, correct?
Yeah.
Because there would be a difference between fornication and adultery. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So again, as I said, Deuteronomy it consists of two words. And the two words is the second law. He's reaffirming the law that he's already given before. This is why.
I think that is, Chris, I don't mean to cut you, but because you said that a few times, do you want to go to that? What do you think that is?
Well, back in Exodus, you know that Moses has already revealed these verses for these type of things, correct?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, do you want to go to that? Because you've mentioned it a few times, and honestly, the audience might not be familiar with it. So I think that would be helpful. Is that okay to go to that passage?
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay. So that's Exodus. I mean, it's interesting because they're both the same chapter. That's Exodus 22. And let me just pull it up here 1 second. I'm going to Exodus 22. This is the NIV, but anyway, I don't think it's any relevant difference. So this is Exodus 22, verses 16 to 17. I'm pretty sure this is what you're talking about. It says, if a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. Are you okay with that translation, roughly?
Yeah, and I believe that this is the same law that he's reiterating in Deuteronomy 22, verses 28 to 29.
Okay, and I would say that I don't think he is. And the reason why is, let me now pull up the word for word Hebrew of Exodus 22:16, which we just read. It says, and if entices a man, a virgin, who is not betrothed and lies with her, surely he shall pay the bride price. Now, I'll agree with you that Exodus 22:16 and Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 and 29, which are the verses that are up for discussion between us at the point, the main verses. I'll agree with you that they're similar in the sense that in both cases, the woman is not betrothed to another man. That's clear. We could all agree on that. Exodus 22, she's not betrothed.
And the bride price is a necessity.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that part. So, but for sure, the woman is not betrothed in Exodus 22:16. She's not betrothed in 22 verses 28 and 29. We all agree on that. However, you're saying that they're the same case, and Deuteronomy is just kind of reaffirming this. But what I notice is different is that this passage says, 22:16 says, and if entices. Now, this word for entices is conspicuously missing from Deuteronomy 22, 28, and 29.
Not if you understand Deuteronomy 22:28 the way that I explained it. If you take the word seizing to mean a manipulation, then we can see that it coincides with Exodus 22:16. Correct?
No, because, well, first of all,
What?
you already know I don't agree with that interpretation.
No,
But
given my interpretation of it, it would agree with it, correct?
if that's what it meant. But what I'm trying to say is, in the same way that you were questioning me about Deuteronomy 22 verses 25 to 27, which we both agree is about rape, you're saying the word that's used there for rape is not the same word that's used in 28 and 29, which I agree with. But I'm saying the same word doesn't need to be used in order to convey a meaning. But in this case, the difference is this word is also not the same word that's used in Deuteronomy 22, 28, and 29. So then I would ask you the same question that you asked me, is why is this word different than the word that's used in 28 and 29?
Because I believe that when the person is speaking in Deuteronomy 22, the reason why I assume that the same word would be used is because the same person is delivering this speech together at one time. So I believe that Deuteronomy 22 would have been spoken at one time to the people, not like 25 one year and then 28 and 29 the next year. So it would have been together at the same period. So it would almost make sense. To me, I'm just saying it would only make sense if it meant to rape to use the same word. But the reason why the person used a different word in that instance is to show force in one verse and to show manipulation in the second verse. And manipulation would agree with Exodus 22:16. So what we have here in Deuteronomy 22, 28, 29 is Moses like reiterating the law that he's already given here in Exodus 22:16. That's what I'm saying.
So the reason why the same word is less likely to be used is because it was a different speech. Is that what you're trying to say? I'm just making sure I understand.
Exodus would have been revealed at this would have been revealed years before. Right. So this wouldn't have been revealed at the same time Deuteronomy 22 would have been revealed. So I can understand the difference in words at that point in time, but they mean the same thing.
Okay. Are you also aware of the interpretation I gave? I think I mentioned in the video from Maimonides.
Yeah.
Okay. And I put on the screen that Maimonides, who, for people who don't know, and you can disagree if you want, but as far as I know, he's a major scholar in the Jewish tradition. And he's known for listing out all of the positive and negative commandments of the Torah. And one of them that he lists based upon this is that the woman who is a rape victim, and he interprets the passage in the way that I do, that she's a rape victim and she's forced to marry the man. Now, do you agree with my interpretation of Maimonides, that's what he was saying?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So, because I didn't know if it was like the case of Augustine. So Maimonides, you would also agree with he interprets the passage in the same way that I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just disagree with him.
Yeah. Okay. So let me stop sharing this here. I wanted to show one other thing here. Let me just pull it up. Where is it here? Okay. So this is a commentary, which I also mentioned in the video. Like, I'm not bringing up any other than the Augustine one, and that wasn't like an intentional gotcha or anything. I'm not bringing any sources up other than I brought.
Oh no, I think the Augustine actually kind of helped me more than it helped you in that instance. I think that maybe you might be able to interpretate it both ways, but I think the way that he wrote it would give it more of an interpretation, is what I said. That's all.
No. I know that. I'm just saying that I know that you interpret him differently. That's why I wanted to ask about Maimonides, whether or not it was a case of Tertullian where you were also agreeing with me, or it was a case of Augustine where you were disagreeing.
Oh no, yeah, I would agree with you with Maimonides, the Rambam. And for people that don't know, I agree. He's a major figure within Judaism, 100%. He's going to be, if you're going to go against a Jewish person, you're going to want to use his name, because every Jewish person that's going to be speaking to you is going to know who it is. I just disagree with him. That's all.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah. But I wasn't even going to waste my time reading the passage so long as you agreed with me. If you disagreed, then I was going to kind of go through it and talk it out, but it's not worth the time to agree.
For sure.
But Matthew Poole, who is a Protestant Christian, comments on Deuteronomy 22:28, and this is also available on Bible Hub. And the reason I'm bringing it up now in this context, because he contrasts it with Exodus 22:16. He says, i.e., an unmarried man, as appears, from his obligation to marry the person he abused, which it is not probable would have been imposed upon him had he been married. Because if the man had been married, this had been adultery, and so had been punished with death, which we all agree with. Lay hold on her, which notes some kind of force or artifice whereby she was overpowered. So that's, he's interpreting it as the same way that I am. Whereas Exodus 22:16, she was enticed, which is what I mentioned, which implies consent. And therefore, the man doth here receive a greater punishment because he used hostile violence towards her, which was the greater sin. So he's interpreting in the same way that the difference between Deuteronomy 22:28 versus Exodus 22:16 is that in Exodus 22:16, based upon the presence of that word enticed, which is clear, which is missing, we're claiming, me and him, obviously you're disagreeing with that, is not present in 22:28. Well, you're saying it's not the same word, but there's a different word that is implying or meant to imply the same meaning. And I just wanted to show another person who was analyzing both texts. He's a Christian, Protestant Christian, and he is interpreting the same way, that no, the difference is Exodus 22:16 is enticed and Deuteronomy 22:28 is not. So obviously I'm assuming this is, you would agree with me about how I'm interpreting Matthew Poole, and you would just say that he's wrong?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, there you go. I mean, that's basically it from my standpoint. The other thing I would say actually about Exodus 22:16, though, because you mentioned it earlier, and this might be a point of difference. Let's see. Exodus 22:16, it says, if a man seduces a young virgin who is not pledged to be married, so she's not betrothed, and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. Okay, so he must pay the bride price. Now, what is not mentioned here specifically is the 50 shekels. And then this says here, if her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. So here, the option for the father to refuse the marriage is present, but it's not present in Deuteronomy 22, which to me also shows that they're not the exact same offense, because the father in this case is allowed to refuse. Why? Because, and I'm making the claim why, it's because it was a matter of consensual sex. and she was enticed. She was not raped. Whereas in the other one, the father is not allowed to refuse, or it never says that it never gives this condition that he's allowed to refuse. And it's because that one is about rape, and they're two different cases. So why do you think it's explicitly mentioned here, but not mentioned explicitly in Deuteronomy 22, that the father has a choice to refuse?
I believe that the choice that the father gets to refuse would be already implied from the previous law and wouldn't have to be spoken for people to already know that the father had the choice.
Okay, so I'm saying that it's not there because they're clearly two different cases. One is about enticing and consensual. The other one is about rape. And you're just saying that the person reading should already recognize and remember this passage here and know that it's the same thing. But
yeah,
I mean, to me, there's nothing. It's obviously an inference that you're making because there's nothing explicitly in the Deuteronomy 22:28 text that says this is clearly the same law as what is mentioned in Exodus 22:16-17. Wouldn't you agree? It's not explicitly mentioned.
No, I agree. It's not explicitly mentioned that this is the exact same law. It's not like Moses says that this is the exact same law that I spoke in Exodus 22:16 and 17. But I don't believe that you would need to have that either, because I believe that it would be the same person speaking these laws, right? And as I said before, Deuteronomy is an actual contraction of two words, and I think that you would agree is the second law. It's reiterating the law that he's already given to these people. And this is why the people would already know when they're reading this verse that the father would have the choice, because they would have already known this law previously. It's not something that he would have had to say.
Mm-hmm. But Chris, do you think that there are any, forget about this case, do you think that there are any genuine differences between Exodus and Deuteronomy where the law on the same matter actually changes, or you think they're all the same?
Between Exodus 22:16 and Deuteronomy 28:29 or 22:28?
I mean Exodus in general, or what you're calling the first law versus the second law. Does the second law, Deuteronomy in general, does it always for the same offense repeat the same punishment or the exact same punishment, or does it sometimes, in virtue of it being the second law, does it differ? Not saying in this case, and other than that.
I believe in marriage it does.
Oh, it does. So it could be the case, and the reason why I'm asking this, because I agree. So you're agreeing that it could be the case that, I don't want to say God changed his mind, but it's abrogated in the Muslim terminology. It's kind of abrogated, or God is, although it's the same offense or the same conditions, the same law, but now it's being contextualized or explained in a different manner, like what you're saying about marriage.
Yeah, like I have no problem with your term of and the way that we want to use it here. Like, I know that we could probably argue on abrogation. This isn't the topic of the day, but what I would say is that you can see in the law of Moses, the Mosaic law, that you were able to divorce for more than just adultery.
Right.
And then in the New Testament, Jesus says that you can only divorce for adultery.
Right.
But I believe that in the New Testament, because it's the new covenant given through the Messiah in Isaiah 42, I believe is the Messiah, and he shall bring his Torah, his law. So when the Messiah comes to bring us the new covenant, he comes with a new law for the people to follow, the Gentiles along with the Israelites. So when a prophet brings his law, I believe that it's a law for the people, which doesn't negate the previous law, but is the law that is bound for the people thereon in. If the new law doesn't speak of something that the old law is already judged upon, then the old judgment is still valid in my view.
Okay. The only other one source that I would like to mention, which I didn't actually mention in the video, and people can look it up the text if they want. This is from John William Weavers. It's called Notes on the Greek Text of Deuteronomy. So it's talking about the Septuagint. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think it's important, because for many Christians, and even the New Testament uses actually the Septuagint a lot in its reiteration of passages from the Old Testament. So I think looking at how the Septuagint Greek text of Deuteronomy in this passage, how it's received, I think is somewhat relevant. So the author, John William Weavers, who actually, as far as I know, he was a Christian. He went to Calvin Theological Seminary, I believe. So this is not like it's obviously not a Muslim or even an atheist source, secular source. He says in describing, he notes that the Masoretic text and Septuagint in this have some slight differences, but nothing relevant to what he to the case that I'm making. He says the translator, talking about the translator of the Septuagint, the translator quite correctly understood that the only difference between that case, meaning in referring to verse 23 and 25, verse 25, which we were disputing about what the difference is. He says, but the translator quite correctly understood that the only difference between that case, meaning verse 25, and this one, meaning verses 28 and 29, was the status of the attacked girl, i.e., of her betrothed versus not betrothed, and using identical language sharpens the distinction. So he's understanding, based upon how the translator of the Septuagint understands this text, that the only difference and the only relevant difference is that one in verse 25 she's betrothed, and in verses 28 and 29 she's not. So I just thought that this was somewhat relevant, because I think you would agree that the early Christians, their Old Testament was the Septuagint in most cases. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah. So John William Weavers, who's commenting on, and this is specifically on the Greek text of Deuteronomy. Sorry, I should have actually. I actually closed it now, so I don't have the. I should have gave the page number, but I'll post. Just reading it straight out of there. But obviously, you would disagree with Weavers on that, which is whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like, and I have no problem disagreeing with certain scholars. I think that it's okay to do that too. Like, they're not our criterion, of course, right, to understand what's going on. And this is what I tell most other Muslims too. If I quoted Yasser Qadi to any known Muslim, like any Muslim apologist, they're going to laugh at me, right? They're going to say, I don't care what Yasser Qadi said, right? I disagree with what he said. So I can disagree with Christian scholars too.
No, you can disagree, but what I try to do, see, not only with this passage or this topic, what I try to do, okay, I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it, but what I try to do is when I try to represent a text in the Bible or whatever, even a theological position of Christians, I try to go to sources that are, friendly to them, or that, mainstream Christians would accept. Like, I'm going to Tertullian, I'm going to Augustine. And then for the Jews, like, I'm going to Maimonides, I'm going to this guy, John William Weavers, it's not Bart Ehrman, right? So I try to go to texts that would be, considered mainstream, or, like, not just complete enemies.
I agree.
Of the Christian faith. I'm not trying to do that. If I wanted to, that would be easy, right? Like, I could go to.
I agree. At least your argument that you're putting forth is that you're putting forth an argument in good faith, and that's why when I saw the video and we had the conversation on X, that's why I agreed to have the discussion with you. You weren't trying to come at it in a disrespectful mode. It's just the way that you've understood it by looking at the sources that you found. And that's why I decided to have the discussion with you. And I have no problem with that. It's like us when we go to the hadiths and thing, um, we try anyway to go to the tafsir and to the hadith and everything to explain what we do as well. And if you're making an argument, you should use the sources that are trusted amongst them. But again, like I said, I can simply disagree with Tertullian. What was Saint Athanasius? I would say that there's just a different interpretation. That's all.
Yeah, and then obviously disagree with Weavers and Maimonides, which is fine. It's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, from our point of view, we wouldn't put Yasser Qadhi in the same category of any of them. Now, some Muslims might still like him, but I think you would grant a lot of most mainstream Muslims online, especially people doing dawah, would not really accept Yasser Qadhi at this point.
No, 100%. But I because you brought up two Christian commentators, of course, right? Now, would you accept a gentleman by the name of Wahab bin Manabi?
Yeah. I mean, with respect to what? He's an early Muslim scholar.
His understanding on the Injil and the Torah.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic.
I think that you would disagree with his interpretation of the Injil and Torah at the time of Muhammad. That's the only reason I brought him up, is I think that you would disagree with his view. That's all. And he's an early scholar within Islam, and you would still disagree with his view coming to that. That's all. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand your point. I think that would require. I know you weren't trying to get into it, but that would require a different conversation, which I'm happy to do another time. We can talk about early scholars' interpretation of the Torah and Injil. That would be interesting. Yeah, so let's see. I don't know how much time you have left, Chris. If you want to.
I only got about 15 minutes, but I think that we can't fully dive into 1 Samuel 15 and get a good conversation out of it in 15 minutes. But I think you'd be shocked of my view when it comes to this passage anyway. I'm under the...
Do you mind just reading? Do you mind if we just read it and you briefly state your view and I'll state mine? And then if you want to come back another time, we could discuss it.
Yeah, can you read 1 to 4?
Yeah, so let me just bring it up here, because a lot of people, I don't like to make assumptions about the audience. I mean, people just might not know what it is. So let me see here. Where is it? Do I have it up here? 1 Samuel? Let me see.
No, yeah, for sure. I told you I'd give you at least an hour and a half today, and that's what I'm going to do. As I said, I respect that you as a Muslim went solo on Christian panels, and I think that in 2026 it's time that we start doing this. We start Christians going to Muslim panels, Muslim going to Christian panels. It's time to start opening up that dialogue. And as you've noticed, me and Jake have been able to be respectful today. No blasphemy, no arguing, no cursing, no nothing.
Yeah. So do you want a specific translation, or is KJV fine? I don't know.
No, yeah, you can read the KJV, just like 1 to 4, just not verse 3. Just read a few verses. That's with it.
Okay. Do you want me to skip over 3, or do you want me to read 1 to 4?
Yeah, 1 to 4. Definitely read 3.
Okay. So KJV says, Samuel also said unto Saul. So for people who don't know, this is 1 Samuel chapter 15. We're starting out at verse 1. So Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now, therefore, hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And verse 4, and Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Telaim, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 and 10,000 men of Judah. You want me to keep reading, or that's it?
No, that's good.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess my claim, and many other people seem to have a problem with this verse, is the verse number 3, which says, "Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling." I guess we could focus on the animals, but that's not, to me, not as big of a problem. What I have a problem with, and what many have a problem with, is the command. This seems to be a command from God to Samuel and Saul that they go and kill the infants or suckling, the babies in the crib, so to speak, of Amalek, and that they are told to directly and intentionally go and kill those infants. So that's the way that I understand it. That's what my kind of problem with it is. How do you interpret the passage?
No, the way that you interpret it is fine. I have no problem with it. To me, this is a judgment of God upon a certain amount of upon people, including the children and everything else. And if, like, a lot of people would tend to say, "Well, God would never unalive babies. That's just mean." But then they forget about the flood, because if during the flood of Noah, many babies would have died within the flood of Noah. When a judgment of God comes down, I'm not going to second guess that judgment of God when it's placed down. Now, there's a reason for this judgment as well, because it says in the verse prior that God remembered what Amalekite did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we read what Amalekite actually did, is that when they met the Israelites, when they were coming, this is back, and again in Exodus, this is when the Amalekites come up and they attack the Israelites from the rear first.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're in a caravan and you're going from place to place, you have the strongest up front leading the way for the weakest out at the back. Now, the weakest at the back would be the farm animals, the children, and the mothers of them, the old and whatnot, right? So they were unalive, or they were killed first by the Amalekites. So the Amalekites just killed their children and everything else. So it's a judgment of God upon the Amalekites, and I'm okay with the judgment of God.
Okay, so you interpret it in the same way, but you're just saying you believe that God commanding this, which includes the killing of infants and babies intentionally, that you're fine with that because it's a judgment from God to evil people.
Yeah, because there would have been babies intentionally that were killed in the flood too.
Right.
And so the intention would have nothing to do about it once it's God's judgment. Like us as theists, if God makes a judgment, so be it. And I think that you would be the same way. If Allah made a judgment, then so be it, right?
Yeah. So, but I think the difference in the case of the flood, and what some people have a problem with, Chris, is that the case of the flood, yes, it's judgment by God. Certainly babies died. I mean, babies die every day, right? Like God is not required to preserve a baby's life. I agree with that, right? I think the difference between those two situations and the two scenarios is that, one, God is judging people with a flood and a sort of quote unquote natural disaster, versus in the case which happens every day or all the time, frequently, right? But the difference with this is where God is commanding human beings to go in and actually intentionally and directly kill babies. I mean, it's like, especially warfare at that time, it's not like dropping a bomb on Hiroshima, right? It's not like, or dropping a bomb today, just pressing a button and boom, dropping it, and then you have so-called collateral damage. That wouldn't have been taking place. This is actually going into a small intimate space, or houses, or places like that in a village, or potentially, and seeing a baby lying there and just like stabbing the baby. I mean, that's that seems quite different than God, judging people that included babies dying in a sort of natural disaster flood type versus actually commanding human beings to doing that action. And the reason why that's concerning is because some nut job could just say, well, God commanded this to me. I received revelation from God. And, there's this command from him to do such and such heinous act. It could be rape. It could be murder. It could be whatever. So that's kind of the difference between the two cases. And what some people have a problem with it is that one is God doing it. It's a case of natural disaster and flood. And the other is claiming that God commanded them to do this, to actually go into a house and just like stab a baby. Don't you see the difference between the two?
Well, I can see the understanding of the way that you're trying to put it. It's the way that God enacts his judgment upon these people that you have that you're objecting to, of course, right? Because intentionally babies did die in the flood.
Yeah.
God is the one that caused those babies to die in the flood. I don't think that I don't even think you would disagree with that, right?
No, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
No, yes, for sure. Now, I'm not going to get into it too much because we ain't got much time here, but I would, do you remember the night raids in Islam?
Yes,
Where where some of the women and children were unalived? What did Muhammad say?
Okay, you want me to bring that up
Yeah,
real quick?
I believe that Muhammad said that they are of them.
Yeah. I'm going to bring that up, and then I'm going to show you what the difference is. Okay, so 1 second.
All I'm saying you can definitely show the difference. All I'm saying is that I'm okay with a judgment of God being laid out. And now I can see your point where somebody down the line could simply say, I heard this from God and go do it. But that's what we believe. Of course, no disrespect. That's what we believe Islam is, right? Because we don't believe in prophets after Jesus.
Right. So here, this is in Imam Muslim's collection of hadith. It's on sunnah.com. It's hadith number 1745a. And if you notice at the top, there's a chapter heading, permissibility of killing women and children in night raids, so long as it is not done deliberately. Okay. And that's what the Arabic text says there. And here it says, the Prophet of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, when asked about the women and children of the polytheists being killed during the night raid, said they are from them. So this is certainly here, right? This is certainly here. There's no question about it. But the understanding of Muslim scholars has always been that this is referring to collateral damage, not intentionally going in and in war, at times of war, seeing a baby just laying there and saying, oh, he's part of them, and just stabbing the baby in the head. That's not why it's understood. It's not understood that way. And the reason is because, and I'll go to Bukhari's collection, actually.
And I'll let you finish here. Then I just got 2 seconds more. And then I do got to drop. I just wanted to let you know I got about 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. So here, basically the same hadith is mentioned, right? 1 second here. Yeah, basically the same hadith is mentioned, and then it says they, i.e. the women and children, are of them, meaning the pagans, right? And then right after that, literally the next hadith, 3014, says during some of the basically battles of the Prophet, a woman was found killed. Allah's messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, disapproved the killing of women and children. Okay. And then you have the same thing in the very next hadith. It mentions the same thing, basically. Just narrated by a different companion. Allah's messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, forbade the killing of women and children. So we have a lot of different hadith that mention that during war times, the Prophet forbade women and children. And we also have the other passage which you brought up, where he's asked about the children of the polytheists. What do you say about them? He says they are of them. So how do the scholars bring that together? Otherwise, you would have to have a blatant contradiction. One is saying that you can kill them, and one is saying no, you're not permitted. It's forbidden to kill women and children in warfare. How the scholars have always understood this is that the ones that's talking about the night raids, that is, and that's hence why it's in the nighttime. Okay, it's talking about what we would call today collateral damage, or not direct intentional killing of women and children and non-combatants, whereas the other passages which clearly prohibit it, which are in the same chapters of hadith together. And that's why the scholars are not trying to hide this or say, oh no, there's this hadith over there and they're not showing this, and they appear to be contradictory. No, they're showing you both hadith in the same chapter to show you the difference. One is about collateral or non-intentional killing, and the other one is about intentionally killing children or babies and women or non-combatants, and that is strictly prohibited in war. So there's really no difference of opinion on that. And that's what the difference is from my side. I'll just wrap up here. That's what the difference is from my side, that we're not allowed to do that in war. We're not allowed to intentionally kill non-combatants like women and babies, whereas in the one about 1 Samuel 15:3 is a direct command to do exactly that. It's not about collateral and non-intentional damage.
So, I see, again, this is where I would disagree with your interpretation of the first hadith that you brought up, because we would question how it would be unintentional, how people would be unintentionally killing children. Like, to me, that's a little far-fetched. It's not like the child is jumping in front of the father and taking a blade for the father instead of the father dying, of course, right? So I guess that's where we would disagree there. That may be a discussion that we can have at another time. But just to wrap up our discussion, I think that we had a good discussion today. Looking forward to having another discussion with you. But other than that, man, have a good day.
Okay, I'll let you go, and we'll talk soon, maybe. Take care.
I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll beg you. Bro, I don't hate trying to give you a breakthrough. Cause it one way, Jesus is God. Ay. Apologetics, one way, ay. Apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay. Apologetics. Salam, Mama, see y'all, Jesus is God. You can try to change my mind if you think that's haram. Don't manifest on me, buddy, just be still and be calm. Cause today I'm gonna teach you about the real of Islam. Just keep it yasir and I'll make you a kafir. Hus gon' be kabir, habibi should be shakir. Who's the one true God? Yours cannot compare. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, why I have no fear. Hey, step up and see if all the energy remains. Spend your days in the mental gym and never see no gains. I'm yet to see the evidence to represent your claims. Now I'm starting to think everything you ever said is strange. The scriptures that I'm reading don't need anyone to change. Anything they say so you don't get to run away. Just know that I'ma hold you to whatever you might say. And God is great, I'm ready for you any time of day. I will not enable your silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, Quran, makes no difference, I'll bake you. Bro, I don't hate trying to give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus God. Ay. Apologetics, one way, ay. Apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, ay. Apologetics, God. Be not afraid, I'm a man of respect. I love the Lord in his hand I project. That's why your ignorance has no effect, and why you ain't sinking your fangs in my neck. You vipers have wisdom, but you lack the innocence. Islam ain't blissful when you have to live in it. Y'all go against the verse if you ain't feeling it. Make up excuses to add something into it. We not the same, his word is the proof. The facts that you lacking, I'm packing the boot. You panic attacking, I'm slapping with truth. And that's why you have to react like you knew. But we don't have children to marry for one, and we don't have orders to hurt anyone. I know your demons are hurt cause we won, but you can be free if you turn to God's son. Not a neighbor, you silly old fables. You lie on my God, then I'm flipping some tables. Bible, make no difference, I'll bake you. Bro, I don't hate, tryna give you a breakthrough. Cause it's one way, Jesus is God. Hey. Apologetics, one way, hey. Apologetics, God bless us. There's one way, Jesus is God. Apologetics, one way, hey. Apologetics, God bless.